All right, so we got this back together. I took it to work with me, and I pressed the old bearing off on this side right in there and pressed it onto this. Not a bad bearing, just I had to reuse this one because the kit I bought didn't come with one. Yay! And then I measured the shims here for pinion depth and put new ones in that are the same size. We're going to try it with these, see how close we're at, just because this is what was in it and I know it was a decent pattern in it. So that's on there. We got the new seal in. There's no nut on the end of this pinion gear, but it's all installed with a new bearing in here. So that's all set for when we put it together and check the pinion depth. I gotta put the new pinion support bearing down in the case in there. That's in the freezer right now. We're gonna grab that out in a second and drop that in there. But right now, we got our ring gear in the toaster oven. Yeah, so I don't recommend this exactly. I wouldn't say that you should do this, but this is how I do it. I've got my locker in the freezer in the house, getting cold overnight. And this thing has been in here like 3 minutes. I'm gonna wait another like 15, get it nice and warm in there. Hopefully it'll expand just enough that with the freezing of the locker, we can just slide it together nice. No pressing or hammering to get it on. That's the plan. I'm gonna put that pinion support bearing in while we wait, and then, yeah, I guess just twiddle my thumbs until that thing is ready to go on. But we're going to start with putting this back in. Okay, well, didn't go as smoothly as I had hoped it would, but it's back in there. Didn't go too bad either, but back in there. It helped being frozen, but it didn't drop in like I was really hoping it would. I had to use my bearing race installer on it, which isn't a big problem. Just push it on the outside of the bearing there, push it down in there. So that's in. My camera was tipping over while I was trying to film that, so we'll see how that turns out, but there you go. So now we're gonna reinstall the snap ring in here. Still a good snap ring. It's kind of a pain in the butt if you don't have straight snap ring pliers, which I don't have here because I haven't needed them. And I have these here and these work. So you just kind of have my smallest pair and I'm holding them up on the inside here. And this is how it came out. And this is how we're gonna get it back in. So I'll just squeeze that down here. Work it in, down in the hole, and release. And there you go. That bearing is not going to come out of there. Ta-da! All right. Ring gear's still working on heating up over there. Let me think, what else can we really do right now while we're waiting on that? Don't think there's a whole lot else to get ready. I guess I could clean some of that stuff up a little bit better so it's ready to go together. But pretty much just gonna sit here and wait now for that to be done, and then we'll be ready to go in. Yeah, I guess I'll set up my bolts. Okay, well, it's in there. All right. It worked out just as I had hoped, which is great. Stuff never seems to work out. The ring gear is on there all the way. Pretty hot. As you can see, our carrier is pretty frosty still from being in the freezer. So it actually worked out great. Got a couple of bolts in there just to hold that carrier where it needs to be. Now they set in this Yukon kit 2 different size bolts, 2 different length bolts, I should say. Same threads and same same size hex, but they're two different lengths. You can see that there. So I'm going to determine now which is the correct length to use. I used the shorter ones because I knew for sure that they would grip the pinion and go in all the way, or the ring gear and go in all the way, pardon me. But let's see, nope. The long ones are a little too long. If they had washers on them, that would work, but these do not have washers. They're not designed to be used with washers. So we're going to use the short ones. I'll grab the rest of those from over here. Okay. I think I can take one of these gloves off at least. Free my right hand up. Now I'm probably going to burn myself because, you know, I'm done. Okay, so I need to set my torque wrench up, put Loctite on all of these, and then torque them all in there. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Well, they're torqued. Sweet. That is kind of a pain in the butt. If you don't have a good system to hold these things for torquing the ring gear bolts on, like a lot of guys I've seen have cut an axle, an old one, shoved it in there and then held that in the vise so they can turn this or torque it down. I just had to like wrestle it and torque it that way, but you achieve the same torque and it works. It's what I can do, so that's what we did. Actually, I can leave that there because we're gonna have to torque those caps in a minute. Now we're ready to reinstall everything into the housing. Shut my toaster off. But yeah, I can put everything back in the housing over here. Install these, put a little preload on them, and go from there. Check the pinion bearing preload. I gotta do that first. I do that separate, I believe, from carrier bearing preload in a 9-inch. And the specs are, I believe, both the same. So I'm gonna check that real quick. When I set it back in the housing, I'll set this off to the side. Still warm. But we'll go ahead and move some of this stuff out of the way first, I guess. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. That's going to go in just like this. Here we go. Okay, so we have our initial preload set on these. Caps are torqued down, and we have our dial indicator. So what we're going to do now is we're going to measure backlash. And what backlash is that movement right there. the amount that the ring gear can move, or the pinion gear actually can move without moving the ring gear. So how you measure that is you get your pinion or your dial indicator here set up. Yeah, that's all right. Set up so that the needle is touching one of these teeth on one of those ways, and then you push it the other way, and there's a spec in here. I'll have to look it up again. It's like 10 thousandths or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I gotta look that up real quick. It's in this manual right here. There's a spec for that, and if it's inside that spec, that is your backlash. If that's all good, then we will run the pattern real quick. But we have to do this before we run the pattern. So our spec for backlash on this thing is 6 to 10 thousandths. So zero's right here. Let me move this other little guy. Right there's 10. So between these two black guys right here is 10 thousandths of an inch. So we currently have, there's 10, 20, 25, 31, 2, 32 thousandths of backlash. So that's too big, way too big. So we need to move the pinion, the ring gear, into the pinion. Yeah, we need to move it into the pinion. I can't tell you exactly how much, and bring that down into our accepted spec. So we're gonna do that right now. Okay, so we started out at like 32 thousandths, and now this black one being 0 and that one being 10. The angle is gonna make it look a little weird, but we're sitting right at 8.5, 9 thousandths backlash, and the spec is 6 to 10, so that is gonna be perfect. It's a little on the loose side, but this thing's, it's good enough. It will work just fine. It is well within the spec. That's a tighter spec for a aftermarket carrier because it's a Yukon carrier. A OE 4.9" is 10 to 16. So we're on the tight end of the OE spec and the loose end of the aftermarket spec, but that will be just fine for this. Now we can finally run the pattern and see how that is. If it's no good, if our pinion is too deep, if our pinion's too shallow, if our ring gear needs to be moved back and forth more, yeah, that's what we'll see. That's what we'll find out. So if it's no good, we're gonna have to change everything and then reset our backlash, and then we can remeasure our pattern again. But backlash comes first. So pain in the butt. If I do have to redo it, I'm not gonna time lapse the whole thing because it seems like this video is gonna be like 6 hours long or whatever, just from setting backlash. So if I do have to redo it, I'll just tell you that I'm redoing it, and I'll do it without the camera on. So now we're gonna paint our teeth, just a couple of them, run it forward twice probably, and then, well, no, we'll just run it through it once this way and once this way, once each rotation, and we'll see where that gets us. Here we go. Okay, so we ran the pattern. This is what it looks like on this side, and that's that side. So that means that our pinion is just a little too close. Okay, what you really want to see is kind of centered like that, centered this way and this way, right? but you really want to see that centered this way and this way. So you kind of want it to look like a football in the center, and this is just a little too close to the root of the teeth there. So we're gonna take the pinion out and add, I don't know, maybe a 5 to 15 thousandths if I can find it, shim, something like that to put in there. Not thousands, yeah, thousands. Yeah, we'll add that shim in there, and then we'll repaint these teeth and run the pattern again. Okay, so we ended up resetting pinion depth, and then of course we had to redo backlash. It ended up at 8 thousandths instead of 9 thousandths. But anyway, so we repainted the teeth, reran the pattern, and that's exactly what we're looking for right there. You get that nice football shape. It's not all the way at the top of the tooth, not deep down at the bottom. And you got the same thing on this side. So that is an acceptable pattern, as they say. I'll show you in the book here in a second. Right here. So our acceptable patterns, ours looks a lot like this one right here, which is just about perfect. I mean, these are all perfect, really. There's very little you can do to correct something like that. This is what you want to see, and that's what we have. So yeah, that's how we reassemble our Ford 9-inch center section. Check our pattern, make sure our wear pattern's good. Pinion depth, I ended up putting another shim, another 90 thousandths shim, something like that, in here. And yeah, there you have it. That's all set to go back in the car now. Yeah, I do have to put these little hold down clips in there so that doesn't move. But other than that, we're all done here.